Welcome to UCI. You ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. We're happy to have you here. If you have a cell phone, you could turn that off and not text. I'd much appreciate it. I have a complicated name. You will see why my name is somewhat complicated, but it starts the same way as somebody that you know well, and it ends the same way. And there are other similarities, as you can see here. Some more obvious than others. So, my name is Armin Schwegler, and I've been here at UCI for over 20 years. I'm the director of Global Cultures, which is a BA program, and I'd like to talk to you today about that program in some detail. I'm a professor in the Spanish department, so I'm a linguist by training and an anthropologist. I grew up in Switzerland, came here in 1975 to learn English, only to get off at LAX at 11 o'clock at night when they cleaned the hallways, and what did I find? No English. Everybody spoke Spanish. So the first 10 minutes in this country, I heard no English at all, and it taught me a lesson right away. Spanish matters here. And so I learned Spanish, mostly at night, because all the good parties at night were in Spanish in my ESL school. So here I am using Spanish, and that's how I got into this field of Spanish linguistics. Easy one. Like all professors here at UCI, we do two things. We do a lot of research, and a lot more research, and some teaching. And the teaching is always much less than the research. So when you interact with your professors, keep that in mind. We are really paid here not to teach, but to do research. That's the truth. Now, the system would like to tell you otherwise, but our salaries don't go up because we teach well. They don't go up or down because we teach poorly. It's just something that we do in addition. So that's a reality you're going to have to face. So some professors are going to be more dedicated to you than others. That's just natural. Nothing wrong with that. But you will have to learn to deal with it. I was very fortunate in the past 20, 30 years. I've learned over a dozen languages. I've done a lot of traveling. And I know that some of you here are probably sitting here thinking, what am I going to do in my future? I can tell you this, don't worry. Your future will work out. There's nothing to worry about. But you have to do one thing, or maybe two. You got to work hard, and you got to do a lot of things. One thing alone today doesn't cut it, and I will talk to you about that in a few minutes when I introduce the Global Cultures major to you. The kids you're going to see here that come in at 4 o'clock and give their talk, almost all of them have two majors. Some of them have three. I have two students that have three majors, and they currently have a 4.0 average. They're very competitive. They work very hard. They get places. I told you I'm a researcher. I do all kinds of research. One of the specialties that I have is Africa, and especially Africa in the Americas. So my last book was about black magic, and you can see the book here. Black magic is a religion used in Cuba. They speak a secret language, and I traveled to Cuba many times to learn their language and write a book about it. So some of you, if you're interested in this, you may want to come along in the future. So that's one of the things you can do here at UCI. You can collaborate with the professors and get engaged and learn how all of this is done. So, why don't you first say hi to a couple of people that you don't know yet here, either in the back, in the front, on the side. Just introduce yourself. Go ahead. Okay. Right. Notice that I do this so that you feel more comfortable. I do it for another reason as well. In your stay here at UCI, it's going to be very important that you make connections. You need support. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs, and that support and the Experience at large is going to be dictated to a large extent by how many people you know well. Nobody likes to be alone and lonely. How many of you speak foreign languages here? Raise your hand real quick. Wonderful, this is fantastic. Take advantage of it. It's a tremendous asset. It's money in the bank. And you want to make sure that you spend it wisely as you progress. So let me give you a little bit of an overview here of the things I'd like to talk about and what you're going to see today. We started at 3:15. You're going to be here till about 4:45. You'll have a break shortly before 4 o'clock. We'll do two things. The main event is going to be the student group presentations. Students in my class, there are roughly 20 students, and they're in this course here. The title is, or the number is, Global Cultures 103B. The topic is language and globalization. My students are nervous. They know that you're here. They didn't know at first that there were going to be that many students in the audience. Which leads me to a question. Turn to your neighbor real quick and tell your neighbor, what do you think are the two greatest fears that Americans have? This is according to a large survey that was done about 2 years ago. Okay. Let me hear. What do you think? Obviously, public speaking and what else? Spiders for women mostly, I think, right? Taxes, death, confession maybe, yeah. Depending on your lifestyle, I guess. All right. Well, public speaking is the #1 fear that people have. And surprisingly, it comes, you can come down here, there's some seats back here in the middle. Why don't you join us down here? There's some here and over there. And as you can see on here, death is a distant second after public speaking. Tell your neighbor real quick, are you afraid of speaking in front of others? Okay. Well, one of the reasons why we make students do what we do here today is precisely that. We want to give you the opportunity to learn before it's too late. I know it's difficult to stand in front of an audience and here to have a chance today. In fact, I told the students the following. I told them that if they mess up today, it does not matter. We're here to practice it. They're here to learn. And that's going to be your situation maybe next month, maybe next quarter, next year, and so on. We do not expect you to be perfect, but we expect you to do two things. Try hard and learn as you go. Learn from your mistakes. So when you see them present today, why don't you smile back at them? It will make you feel good, and the talk will be better. Right? And what goes around comes around. Someone else will do it to you in the future. So let me get back to the overview. You've already seen the main part, and then in part 2, which is actually what I'm doing right now, or I'm going to start it right now, I'd like to give you an overview of this major called Global Cultures, and then I'll tell you a few things about what this particular class is all about. So let me start with an overview of the major. Global Cultures is an interdisciplinary BA program. So after 4 years, I'm out of here, and you do something with an enormous amount of flexibility. This is the most flexible major that we have, probably at UCI. Gives you a lot of freedom. Now, Global Cultures is very similar in some ways to international studies. We have in the School of Social Sciences here at UCI a major called International Studies. It's much larger than Global Cultures. Global Cultures currently has about 80 to 100 students in it. This one has 800 to 900, which brings advantages and disadvantages. We've only been around 6 years. They have been around a lot longer. We're in the humanities, they're in the social sciences. Now, You might wonder, well, what's the difference? As one of our students recently wrote me, he said, look, for me, global cultures is really the same as international studies, but with less politics and more people in it. And I like that statement. I think it describes it very well. So our mission then is the following. We like to explore the problems and processes of globalization from a humanistic perspective. So let me illustrate to you what that means in concrete terms by showing you what some of our students have done. Jamie, she finished a year or two ago. And Jamie grew up here in California, but her parents are from Thailand. So she was interested naturally in Asia. And she became interested in the question of water management in China, which today is a huge deal because, as you may know, China has a lot of water in the south and no water in the north. So they're trying to build a large channel to bring it up there, and a lot of pollution problems and so on. She became interested in this question because she worked while she was going to UCI, and she's worked at the time for the water district. And so she became interested in global trends in water management, which leads to global issues, and that helped her find local solutions. She finished here after 4 years, and then immediately got a job with a nonprofit organization. She's currently working pretty happily so up in the LA area. Other students, well, let me talk about them first. I already said it. Almost all of them double major. Why? Well, because the world has become very competitive. First of all, some of you, you don't know what you will do in the future. If you have 2 majors, you've got more options. You will be much more competitive when it comes to grad school. Put differently, you can almost no longer afford to single major because your competition is going to be too big. So, how do they double major? Well, some of them study foreign languages and globalization. Others, literature. Others, public health and globalization. Yet others study economics and combine it with global cultures and so on. So there's many different things you can combine. So let me give you an overview now of how all of this really works in practical terms. I'll be talking about the structure of the major, how it's set up, about the advantages it will give you if you do so, the careers you can have, and then I'll briefly take you to the website and show you where you can find additional information. So let me talk about the structure. How does this really work? It's a total of 14 courses. That roughly matches the number of courses in any major in the humanities. It fluctuates between 12 and 15. So this is roughly in the middle of it. Now, only 6 are obligatory. Of those 6, 3 are very basic, and they're the world history courses, 21, A, B, and C, which many of you probably don't take. So in reality, it's really only 3 courses which are obligatory. One of these courses is the one that the students are in, they're going to wait out here and come in at 4 o'clock. Which means that the rest, 8, students pick on their own. How do they do so? They pick these electives from a large number of courses that are being taught here at UCI and that we list on our website on a quarterly basis. So, how are these grouped? Well, they're grouped by geographic emphasis. So I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, if you were in a major like this, what geographic region of the world, what continent, for instance, would you be most interested in? Tell your neighbor real quick and tell them why. Okay. quick how you responded. Can I ask you in the back, what did you say? Yes. Yeah, both of you. I'll just ask both.
A country? A country or just
Either
general?
a country or a region or a continent.
Alaska?
Alaska. Wonderful. Why Alaska?
I'm not sure. I'm just interested in it. It's
Okay.
nice.
That's a good reason. Look, I became a specialist in Africa, and I knew less about Africa than you. Sometimes it's pure curiosity that leads to something. What about you? What did you pick?
California
California. Okay.
has the transportation issue in California.
Okay. What did you pick?
Europe,
Europe. Why?
because I'm really interested in going over there and looking at how we have roots.
Great. Are your parents from Spain or family?
No, well, they're Mexican, but I'm Mexican.
Okay. How many of you have been to Europe? Raise your hand. Great. All right, that's fantastic. Let me ask one more. Can I ask you? What are you interested in? What region?
United States in general.
Okay, United States in general. Did you want to compare that to another region or?
Not really. I'm not interested in domestic policy.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, let me show you what we have. In fact, it didn't matter what you picked because we cover the world in our course. For instance, of course, Africa, Asia, and each student has to pick an emphasis. So they each picked one of these. You can also pick larger regions like the Atlantic Rim. So you can compare, for instance, West Africa to South America, West Africa to North America, and so on. And the same with the Pacific. Now, oftentimes students are, just like that student that studied water issues, they're interested in studying things across different areas. You can do that too. Now, let's say you don't like any of this still. Well, you design your own. So you have complete freedom in the way you want to set this up. Let me give you some sample courses that we teach. And again, keep in mind that these are just samples. We teach hundreds of courses with different titles, but this will give you a good sense of the range of things, for instance, in inter-area studies. Race, sports, and the media, for instance, in the United States, or in Asia, or in Europe, or elsewhere. Asian American women. We teach this kind of course often because it attracts a big audience of students. As you already noticed, lots of our students here at UCI, more than half are of Asian background. This is a fantastic course. World of Coffee. It's so good that I actually picked up the textbook and read it myself too, out of pure interest. It's fascinating. It introduces you to the history and to the economics of world coffee, and it shows you just how important that cup of coffee really has been over the last 300 years. Sexuality is always interesting. Everybody likes that, right? So music, audio, gender, sexuality, lots of different topics. And then, of course, there is this class. Global Cultures 103B, which is language and globalization. In this class, we study how globalization has affected the use of language, or the use of languages, in different countries of the world. And you might think, well, why does this matter much? Well, let me just give you one example. As you know, the European Union was formed roughly 10, 20 years ago, and that has led to a huge issue. They have made it obligatory that every single official document is translated into every official language in the Union. And guess what? The translation now is so complicated that it eats up 38% of the entire European budget. Billions and billions and billions of dollars now go into translation. So this question of language looms extremely large in a place like Europe. So what then is the task of these students that are waiting here outside this door? They're going to come in here, and part of this course is presenting a PowerPoint presentation, each of 15 minutes each. There's a question and answer period of about 5 minutes, and then the next group will speak. It is their obligation to use PowerPoint, and it is their obligation to inform us about one country, mostly of their choice. They have chosen the following countries for this particular class: Israel, Colombia, Costa Rica, Taiwan, Japan, and Morocco. I want you to turn your neighbor and tell your neighbor, which of these countries don't you know exactly where it is? Tell your neighbor real quick. And help each other find one. Okay, so you're going to be listening to this talk, and you have 2 sheets of paper in front of you. At the end of the talk, you're going to write an eval. You don't have to put your name on there. It's anonymous. And you're going to respond to the questions that you see there and give feedback to the students so they can learn from the process. Now, I have not told the students the order in which they will present. I didn't want to tell them because you're only here for 2 talks. And so in some ways it's not quite fair because some of them are going to have a lot of people here and the rest of the groups are going to have fewer. So I wanted to make it fair and I created a lottery. So we'll do this lottery right now. I'm going to allow some students to pick, and the first one you pick is the first group that is going to present right here. So why don't you pick the country? All right, you want to tell us what it is?
Number 4.
Japan is going to be number 1. Would you like to pick one? Tell us, what is it? Taiwan is going to be next. Israel, number 3. Colombia will be next, and Costa Rica, and then the last one. Now, if you would like to stay for all of them, that's of course great. You're welcome to stay here and see all the presentations. So before I go on, let me ask you if you have any questions. Is there anything you'd like to know about how UCI works, how this major works? Yes, we'll give you additional eval forms in a minute. Anything else?
Okay, so my goal, I do this like 4 years here. I want to learn a total of like 4 languages. So was this major help me do that?
Yes, You'll see in a minute how that can be done. Any other questions? All right, let me move on then. Got a few more minutes here. And let me talk about the advantages that this major has, especially when you combine it with others. I already told you that there are 14 courses. Well, as you could see, if only 6 are obligatory, that gives you a great deal of flexibility, which is important for the following reason. When you double major, the biggest challenge is to finish up in 4 years. When you have a lot of flexibility, this makes it relatively easy to do so. So you don't have to be here more than 4 years in order to double major. It can be done. Advantage number 2. It's ideal for double majoring because other people do it. You're not the first one. So we have experience of helping you walk through this major quite readily. Now this addresses your question about learning foreign language. Almost all of our students go abroad. They go abroad for 6 months and some of them for a whole year. Picture this. In the UC system, we have almost 4,000 students abroad at any given moment. As you sit here, they're all traveling the world. They're all learning foreign languages. You typically need 2 years to go abroad, 2 years of foreign language here, or for some programs, 1 year. So it depends on the program you want to go on. If you go on these programs, they can work seamlessly. All the courses you take abroad can count towards this major. So you're not losing time, and very important is this, it does not cost you more to go abroad than stay here. I don't care how good your professors are here, they're never as good as abroad. Why? Because abroad, the classroom is 24 hours. You learn at every step, whether you're at the university or whether you're at home. It makes no difference. Now, a tremendous advantage is also this. Some of our high caliber students, especially, low majors, and when I say a high GPA, I'm referring to 3.6 to 4.0, they go very far, and their graduate studies become literally free. Let me give you the case of Julie. She finished up 2 years ago. She was a dance major. She sat in here, came and gave that talk just like the other students today. She applied to grad school. I wrote her a letter of recommendation, and she got accepted into Harvard Law School, everything fully paid. 2 months ago, I sent a student to Stanford Law School. I'm not picking here law schools just randomly. I picked that because, as you know, law schools at that level are the most competitive, along with med schools and everything. So I've sent students there, economics at San Diego within the last 3 months. So our students get to the place where they want to get. But they got to do the work. They got to double major. They got to go abroad. They got to stay competitive. So what can these students then do? Well, not everybody wants to go to grad school. Many of them prefer to have careers. Business, be that national or international, can be a logical option. The law we've already seen. Education, I would say about 20% of our students go into education. The print media, TV, foreign service, and this is very attractive to a lot of students. Non-profit. Lots of them like to do that after they finish here. A natural is, of course, also the travel industry, especially if you have foreign languages in your repertoire. And then the logical, which is grad studies in and of itself. Notice that you don't have to be a law student or a pre-law student here. You can still go to law school if you have chosen other majors. So the choice of the major for some careers really does not all matter that much. What matters is that you do well here, you keep busy, you do lots of things, and make sure you get good grades. So a high GPA, let me forewarn you here, a high GPA will be like money in the bank. You will come to the point of no return here, where if you don't have a high GPA, there's not much you can do. Grad school will not be a possibility for you. I saw a student today as a 2.7. I had to tell him, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. You can't go to grad school. It's just not available for you. It's too late. You will face that same reality. So it's very useful to keep that in your mind early on. So finally, to finish up, we have a website that you can visit. It looks like this. You can easily locate it on the uci.edu website by typing in global cultures. And on the left here, you can see there's some links. The first link is the most important one because it describes us in about a page and a half. It has cross links. It's called About Us. And then on that cross link, you will see a brochure. You can double click here and it gives you a very brief summary and you can find out more about us and how to enroll and how the program really works in detail. As you can see here, since 2007, we've grown. We're growing rapidly. We've grown over 100% in 2 years. This link may be of great interest to you because you heard me talk and I've said beautiful things about our major, but I can pretty much tell you anything. I'm the director. And of course I'm going to say nice things. But you want to get it from the horse's mouth. And the horse's mouth is the students in the program. If you click on this link here, it will take you to this. You see a photo of different students. They describe very briefly what they've done here or what they currently do. And if you click on the photo or on their name, an email message will pop up with their address in it, and you can email them and say, hey, I heard you're in the program. I'd like to have coffee with you, or I have a brief question. Can you help me? And they have all agreed to do so. So this is a good way of meeting a senior student that can give you first-hand information about the major. All right, I've done plenty of talking. let me ask you if you have any questions before we have the other students come in. I'm going to give you a break of about 10 minutes, in about 2-3 minutes. But if you have questions, I'd be very glad to answer them right now. Uh-huh.
You were saying that you have about 80 to 100 majors.
Mhm.
Do you know how many people are pursuing the minor?
Okay, the minor in global cultures, we have no clue. I'm glad you asked me this question. I have no clue how many people do the minor. Let me explain to you. This is not just true of this. The university has no clue of how many minors there are until you graduate, because it is not until you graduate and declare, oh look, I've taken these courses which also qualify for this minor, that you get the minor. So we have no record, no track record until you finish. Which is why I don't know it, the president of the university has no idea, nobody knows. But let me also say this, a minor is just that. It is incredibly minor. It's great to do it for personal reasons, but when it comes to your academic future, it counts nothing. I have never looked at a CV and said, look, oh, this student has a minor, let's take him for grad school. It just doesn't matter because practically everybody has one anyways. It does not make you more competitive. So double majoring definitely makes you more competitive because you're a stand-up. Because you have to keep in mind that by the time you apply for good grad schools, the pile we get, the average in that pile is about 3.75 or 3.8. So even if you're a 3.9, you're not going to stand out. You will need very good letters of recommendation from different professors. You'll need high grades. You need multiple majors. You need to have been abroad, foreign language experience, and so on. All right, so, do you have any questions? Tell your neighbor real quick, from 0 to 10, how worried are you about your future? How do you see it? So, to conclude here, let me return to a point that I made very early in my talk, and do keep that in your mind as you progress here at UCI. This is a research university, which means that the professors are not going to come to you. You're going to have to be the ones that make it happen and establish contact with professors, and it's not an easy thing to do. In most cases, it's not a comfortable thing to do. And why do you think it's not comfortable? Because when you need a letter of recommendation, you pretty much have to go like this. Please! And there's nothing you can give the person in return. So you have to beg. And begging is never comfortable. But you have to make sure that by the time you need these letters, you have to absolutely be sure that that professor knows you personally. Because if not, they will pull out this famous letter that every professor has here. Dear, and then 3 X's. Replace the X's with the name, send the letter off. And that will kill your application, because the people that read this know how to read these letters. They can tell immediately whether the letter is personal or whether the letter is just a form letter. So you need to make contact, individual contact with professors. And it's not easy. And it all depends on you. And being shy in the process will not help you. You got to start early. In fact, you should start immediately today. Don't wait. Because, as you all know, it takes time to get to know somebody, and you can't do it in one session. You got to make sure that the professor knows you multiple times. Any questions, any comments from anyone?
On the language thing here, I know that we're going to be traveling abroad to academic major, but are they going to be having that sound for people to like take language here?
I'm
Does
not
that
sure.
make sense?
No, I didn't quite understand what I mean.
Like I said, I want to emphasize on learning languages,
Uh-huh.
and will the major help me about that? Like, how do you-
Yes, we enroll you in language classes before you go. And then when you get to the country, typically you also have special classes there that help you transition. So for instance, if you want to go to Spain, well, you may want to go to Barcelona, but there's a hitch. The problem is that in Barcelona they speak Spanish and also another language is called Catalan. And they teach in both languages at the university. Some courses in Spanish, some in Catalan. And students go, wow, I can. Well, it's a great opportunity. Go there, learn both. Why not? It doesn't hurt. But you will need a certain level of language because otherwise you can't compete. Who is here from abroad? Can I ask, who is here from a different country? Where are you two from? Where are you from? Indonesia, right? So you speak Bahasa, right? The students are going to come in here, they know a lot about Bahasa. They had a special lesson on it. They know where it is, they know where it comes from, and talk to them, all right? China. And you both speak English well, right? Well, it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. I remember when I first came here, I did not speak a word of English. It's tough. But today, it works out just fine. And things will work out for you. But you've got to make it happen. You've got to do the work. And it's easier said than done because it's competitive. But you will have friends here. And I want you to make one more friend or one more name that you know by turning around and saying hi to one more person. Then walk out with them, and the other group will come in, and at 4 o'clock, in about 8 minutes, come back in here, and I'll be ready for the talk. Okay? So, take a break, but first meet somebody on the way out, and then we'll take things from there.
Oh,